Let me, before I ask you to begin, give a brief introduction of each of our witnesses. Our first witness will be Mr. Goldwein. He's the Senior Vice President and Senior Policy Director at the Committee for a Responsible Budget. Prior to joining the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, Mr. Goldwein served as the Associate Director of the National Commission on Fiscal Responsibility and Reform, known as the Bowles-Simpson Commission, which I've referenced and served on, and Senior Budget Analyst on the Joint Select Committee on Deficit Reduction, also known as the Super Committee. Dr. Blahous is the J. Fish and Lillian F. Smith Chair and Senior Research Strategist at the Mercatus Center. Dr. Blahous specializes in domestic economic policy and retirement security with an emphasis on Social Security, as well as federal fiscal policy, entitlements, and healthcare programs. He's the author of Social Security, The Unfinished Work. Dr. Blahous also served as a public trustee for Social Security and Medicare from 2010 through 2015. Ms. Monde is the Executive Vice President and Chief Advocacy and Engagement Officer at AARP, where she has directed several notable advocacy campaigns for AARP, among other achievements. She also oversees AARP's public outreach and education initiatives, as well as state and local advocacy and community engagement across all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Ms. Vallis serves as Chief Executive Officer of the National Academy of Social Insurance. Previously, she was a senior fellow at the Century Foundation, where she founded the organization's disability economic justice work and launched a national campaign to modernize supplemental security income. We will begin with Mr. Goldwein's opening statement, followed by Dr. Blahous, Ms. Monde, and then Ms. Vallis. Mr. Goldwein.
Thank you. Chairman Crapo, Ranking Member Wyden, members of the Finance Committee. Thank you so much for inviting me to testify here on this incredibly important issue. Social Security is the bedrock of America's retirement and disability support system, providing vital benefits to 70 million Americans. But Social Security's Retirement Trust Fund is in crisis. In just 6 years, the retirement program is projected to be insolvent. That's not far off. It's when today's youngest retirees turn 68 and when the next class of senators finish up their first term. At that point, the law calls for a 22% benefit cut, the equivalent of $500 per person each month. Congress could, of course, change the law using general funds to cover Social Security's financing gap, but that would entail borrowing an additional $190 trillion over the next 75 years. That's the equivalent of 165% of GDP on top of what we already owe. That additional borrowing would stifle economic and income growth, balloon interest rates, and very likely send the country into a dangerous debt spiral. Paying out of the general fund would also end Social Security as we know it as a self-financed contributory social insurance program. Fortunately, there are a number of well-known solutions to secure Social Security without sparking a financial crisis. Proposals to enact progressive benefit reforms, increase the payroll tax maximum, or gradually adjust the retirement age have been well vetted and should be considered as part of any solvency package. My organization has also been developing novel solutions, including imposing a $100,000 cap on the amount of benefits that a couple can collect, including broadening the employer payroll tax base to cover all compensation, capping the COLA for rich seniors, reforming the taxation of benefits, and I could go on. The challenge before Washington today, though, is less about what to do to save Social Security and more about how. Based on my research and my personal experience, I humbly suggest you task a commission, council, or advisory board to help facilitate agreement on a solvency package before it's too late. This approach would not be new for Social Security. Actually, all major legislation, all of the most significant Social Security laws ever passed were developed with the help of an outside commission or council. The original Social Security Act came from Francis Perkins' Committee on Economic Security. Major legislation in 1939, 1950, 1956, 1972, 1977, they all came out of the work of Social Security Advisory Councils, the predecessor to today's Social Security Advisory Board. And the landmark 1983 reform, which brought us 50 years of solvency, was developed and negotiated in part through the Greenspan Commission. When it comes to Social Security, these special processes are the regular order. Of course, these processes don't remove elected officials from their important roles and responsibilities in the legislative process. Rather, they help facilitate bipartisan agreement by setting forth a specific mission and establishing a safe space to develop and consider options, trade-offs, and compromises. Over the years, Congress has established hundreds of commissions, advisory councils, and other groups focused on all sorts of topics. Many fail, but many succeed, and success takes all different forms. In the case of the BRAC commissions to consolidate military bases, Congress enacted the recommendations in full. For the Greenspan Commission, that served really as a venue for negotiations between President Reagan and Speaker Tip O'Neill. The 9/11 Commission, meanwhile, developed recommendations that Congress and the President implemented piecemeal based on their own policy judgment. I was lucky enough to serve on 2 of these special committees, including working with Chairman Crapo and your colleague, Senator Durbin, on the Simpson Bowles Fiscal Commission back in 2010. Our commission developed a plan to both stem the growth of the debt and restore permanent solvency to Social Security. 11 out of 18 of our members, spanning the ideological spectrum, supported these recommendations. Even in this body, that would be a filibuster-proof supermajority. Unfortunately, our recommendations were not enacted in full into law, but they did spark a national conversation on fiscal policy and nearly culminated in a grand bargain between President Obama and Speaker Boehner, actually 3 different times. The commission was able to reach agreement because members took the time to agree on a common set of facts, and they worked to build shared trust and understanding. As Chairman Crapo has pointed out before, the relationships built on that commission were a very big part of its success. Of course, all sides had to compromise, but they did so in the spirit of securing our nation's finances and saving Social Security for generations to come. I want to close real quick by quoting the late Senator Tom Coburn, who said this right before he voted for that Simpson Bowles recommendations, of which he declared he hated half of it. All republics failed, he said. They all fail over fiscal issues. The way we cheat history is for all of us to give up something, he continued, so we create a future that is honoring the tremendous sacrifice that came before us. Thank you again to the members of this committee for your important work.
Thank you very much. Mr. Blahous.
Thank you, Chairman Crapo, Ranking Member Wyden, all the committee members. I'd like to make 4 points in my oral remarks based on my written statement. First, Social Security solvency matters. This is not just an abstract accounting exercise. There's a reason Social Security benefits are so reliable and that Americans do not regard them as welfare. When you get a job, you pay Social Security payroll taxes. These dedicated taxes are credited to special trust funds whose sole purpose is to finance Social Security obligations. These funds cannot spend beyond the revenues they collect. Your benefit is a mathematical function of your earnings that were taxed. All of this enables workers to say to elected officials, we earned these benefits, we paid for these benefits, you can't arbitrarily take them away. But there's a price for that unique security and political strength. It only works as long as lawmakers align benefit schedules with what worker contributions can finance.